I'm Packham, Chief Architect for the Microsoft ecosystem at HCLTech. And I've been involved in so many conversations recently about AI. And those conversations have changed. They've changed from what is it, what's the impact going to be, to how do we scale, how do we think about the challenges, and how do we think about doing that responsibly at scale. So I'm joined today by three thought leaders from the industry. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a moment, and we'll dig into some questions about how everybody's seeing AI scale for business value. So Lester, would you like to go first?
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Lester Thomas. I work for Vodafone. I'm part of the Global Strategy and Architecture function, and my role is Head of New Technologies and Innovation, which clearly at the moment is all about AI and generative AI.
Hi, I'm Mondweep Charkraworty. I'm part of Lotus Technology. So my role is as part of a team called the Digital Innovation Tech Center, and we're trying to bring to life new products and services centered around the car, which should enhance experiences that our customers can enjoy. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Vijay Punja, and I work for Microsoft. And my role is effectively, the title is Global Black Belt for Data Security, but what that means, though, and the reason I just give the title, because some people know what that means, is it's to sit kind of with product teams, listen to what they're telling us about the products that are happening, and inform customers, but also, more importantly, actually, listen to customers and figure out where we can drive the product in line with customer requirements. So, these kind of conversations with customers are so invaluable.
So let's start, innovation. Yeah, you must be very busy at the moment. What are you kind of seeing as the biggest trends?
Clearly, like the last 18 months ago when this Gen AI really hit, we could see straight away that it would have a big impact in our business. And I think the interesting thing is we've moved from data and AI being something done in one department in Vodafone to it being something where we're literally asking every function, show me what your AI strategy is. So you work in HR, show me what your AI strategy for HR is, or in supply chain, what's your AI strategy for supply chain. So it's going to have a big impact in virtually every function of the business. And the use cases go well beyond just chatbots. Like people think of AI and Gen AI and think, well, I have automation and chatbots. But actually there's far more use cases. Almost like whenever you're interacting with human language, there's use cases. There's use cases to derive insight and summary from natural language. There's lots of use cases to generate content, marketing content. Could even be code content, like we're using GitHub Copilot as part of our software engineering. So there's many use cases beyond what you might first think.
Yeah, for me, I think it comes down to two things. It's, can we do what we do today better? And can we do what we've never been able to do in the past now? And I think that's where the real innovation. In Lotus, are you seeing the same everywhere, kind of, it impacts everywhere, or is it in one specific area you see the value?
So at Lotus, we hold kind of customer, we've been a niche producer of automobiles, right? Performance is our heritage. We are going into, shall I say, segments which are new as part of our Vision 80, which is when we turn 80, we want to have one of our pillars being the ecosystem related growth. Like when someone probably buys a car, nice car, there are expectations around the digital nature of the car. And we want to provide those experiences innovatively, leveraging new technology, but with data privacy and security, the crux of our proposition. We want to respect individuals' rights and expectations. So we want to do that in a very responsible manner. So we are seeing we've started ramping up in terms of our car sales, productions, etc. And we are probably very much starting off this journey where we want to work with open ecosystem. So we want to reinvent the wheel, but do so in a manner that reflects our brand identity and our brand heritage in the right manner. So short answer to that is that we're being led by a customer. We're trying to be very customer-centric about what customers want and work backwards from there.
So look, both of you, industries that have changed dramatically, over the years. Microsoft, Microsoft in a way has always been about the platform, the code, the tools. But I think that's changing. How are you seeing what Microsoft does in terms of being a business enabler rather than just selling technology, if you will?
I think it's the culture actually is kind of driving that to an extent. It was really interesting, Lester, what you said now is that you're asking your business units effectively to drive the AI strategy. And you know, you said data and AI is no longer just the kind of recluse of the technology teams. You know, it's about empowering teams with data and AI as well. And so things like products that we've been producing for some time now are now starting to become more prominent. So things, because some of the concerns around generative AI is about data, governance, security, overexposure, all those kind of concerns that they're just kind of more prominent now because there's additional tooling now, additional, you know, co-pilots to be able to use that data. So yeah, I'm seeing that things that have been around for some time anyway are just becoming now more prominent. There's a real kind of drive to empower the business by enabling them to, you know, define the security around data, and then also define sort of standards around governance around data as well. And people are actually starting to become more interested in that because they realise that if they can secure and govern that data, then that is really going to help them enable these Gen AI apps across their environment. So yeah, that's one big change we're seeing.
Can I just build on what you mentioned? I think the benefit of the last year in which we have seen, if I may limit myself to Gen AI, has been the fact that there have been certain industries where people had to be more aggressive decision making done, although there were awareness of risk. Like I would say there have been implementations where there are critical, in some parts of the industry, I mean, probably the first time critical vulnerability exposures with that, you know, the big players have gone ahead, probably including yourselves, I do not know, in customer-facing applications and critical industries. And there's been a retrospective attempt to kind of, I think, mitigate those risks or fix those. But I think we have the learnings now. Learnings from those industries, from the big players, including yourselves. And I think we therefore should form a kind of best practices, guardrails-based approach to anyone new starting off. I'm sure that's the approach we are taking. So as you say, in the business, I mean, I answered your first question from a customer point of view, but within the business, whether it's legal, whether it is marketing, whether it is HR, I mean, there's an immense benefit in being able to interpret the unstructured data that is all out there in simplistic manner, right? Yeah. But how do we do so in a manner, security is given, right? But in a responsible way, explainability of the whole thing, right? And I think it has to be approached like McKinsey have provided a lot of thought leadership on this topic, is that how do you start small, like start understanding what is the incoming risk, what risk already exists with no Gen AI, versus what is a new risk from Gen AI, what is your risk appetite as an organization, right? IP infringement as a topic, or maybe, you know, data leakage as the other topic, and then what are you willing? Make a conscious choice about it. And then identify a few use cases, and probably this is nothing new I'm saying here, but I'm quite pleasantly surprised, like in some of my discussions around colleagues here, including from legal industry, right? Yeah. They're like, we want to just write policies for the sake of policies. You know, why don't we work together to identify one or two use cases? You know, we work together, identify risk, measure our risk appetite, and then take an incremental step to it. Because I think there is no perfect answer to how we're going to do it. We all agree this is game changing. This is an attack from under. Like in a strategy, you got attack from over, which is fine. But if it's an attack from under, then you got to really rethink like how you balance the opportunity against risk.
I think that risk-based approach is really important because, as you say, we've been democratizing the access to these AI tools and platforms. There's been a huge number of use cases, and traditionally you might have looked at just like what's the business value versus the cost, but we've been taking very much a risk-based approach because you have to learn by doing. And doing means doing it with real data, like doing it in purely a POC environment. You don't actually learn anything. But if you do it on a like, what is the lowest risk use cases we can pursue, and so we learn by doing. So typically that means like doing use cases where you're the consumer of the data. So driving insight from data, there is no risk. Like we're not exporting any risk. Doing it for like for chatbots, doing an employee chatbot first, to actually learn, how do you build a chatbot experience around it. So we've got a model whereby we start with the lowest risk use cases and learn by doing on a risk basis, and also lead you to do some slightly different use cases. So there's the whole augmentation versus automation. Yeah. So there's a roadmap of saying the first use cases aren't trying to like replace employees with AI. They're trying to, or setting out to give them superpowers, augment them with, which is the whole co-pilot branding, which I really like. And I thought that's the right approach, because you can do that in a much lower risk way. You can continuously improve that augmentation, and clearly, if you're giving people superpowers, you do have the business benefits from delivering that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
I think, Serge, that the conversation about risk. But I think the way that we are talking about risk has changed. It's now not a sort of a technology and IT. It's a much broader conversation. And I think, you use the word democratized. And I kind of find it really interesting now that we're all having this conversation. It's not a CIO, it's not an IT conversation, it's a business conversation. We're all learning in that. So, in that, Vijay, you've got the whole Microsoft platform. For me, one of the important things is the cloud removes the barrier to innovation. I don't need to buy thousands of servers. Exactly. I don't need to make massive. Even as a small startup, could spin up what I need in an afternoon and be doing cool stuff.
Exactly.
So, just talk a little bit about how the cloud drives innovation and how it just makes it easier to do good stuff now.
Yeah, I think, I've been in IT for a long time and I did a lot of operational stuff. So I was in that space where we had to build an application, you'd have to buy servers in network equipment. And there really was a barrier to entry, to spin up new applications or business capability with technology. And then we saw that evolve with cloud technology, that it just enabled that ability to do that. And now we're seeing that, with AI now, there is that, and then at the same time, there was risks associated with shadow IT, where people would just, realize that asking their IT department to buy 10 servers for an application, they could just go to a SaaS provider and then, get a SaaS service. So what we're seeing is, there is a risk of shadow AI as well now. So there is the risk around a lot of Gen AI apps are getting built. There's more Gen AI apps. We have a catalogue of over 400 Gen AI apps in Developer Cloud Apps, for instance. So, that just shows that probably more than I realised when I heard that stat. There's so many Gen AI apps out there. So I think that there's always going to be some risks with new technology and innovation. But I think it's using combination of the different, within Microsoft, we have the E5 platform. There's a whole load of capability within the platform, and it's using the different capabilities within the, all the different products to secure yourself against those kind of risks associated to Gen AI, when there's potential for data leak, if there's information that's being shared into public Gen AI apps, then the nature of a public Gen AI app is that it will reuse that and it will learn from that. So, there's a big risk of that kind of thing happening, where someone might put some information that's a confidential internal information. If it's put into a public AI app, then it could, be reused and exfiltrate effectively. So I think, we're seeing that you've got to use the solutions that are available to you, and really think of kind of innovative ways to secure yourself against those different risks as well around shadow AI.
This is where probably the whole point about, I think those would be successful in the next 3-5 years. I would suggest to say, if those who don't necessarily need to be a rocket scientist to understand AI, but those who can effectively use Gen AI or AI tooling, right? So there's this whole intrinsic point about motivation, right? If you are in an organization, if you're constrained, unable to effectively use Gen AI tooling or AI tooling in general, you're going to be left behind. So how the organization therefore has a responsibility to introduce a mechanism by which the staffing itself could use for their day-to-day jobs, right? What are the guardrails? How do we, some of the themes that you mentioned about, data exfiltration, or in the hundreds of these open source models out there, how do you avoid someone not using something that they're supposed to? What models they should use potentially for image generation and for text generation? How could you improve productivity? So how do we therefore create some kind of a mechanism through a platform or empower employees to start making use of it? So I think that is what I will compliment what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a great point about empowering, training, developing the skills across the whole organisation. It's it's not rolling at all out anymore, is it? It's
Because people are going to use it regardless.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to use it regardless.
Yeah, they
'Cause
are.
Everyone's seeing it's so useful.
Yeah. Are you seeing that same in Vodafone? That same, in that democratisation, it's more than just providing a platform.
And we have done a company-wide education program because the only way to counter some of the risks is through education.
First step, isn't it, really? Yeah.
And so literally every employee in Vodafone will have a baseline of education on the Gen AI tools, what they're good for, what are the risks, what are the things you have to be cautious about using them. And that's part of our foundational sort of education that we do.
Yeah.
So where are you both in in your own journeys? Are you proof of concept, MVP, production? Are you seeing real use cases kind of starting to scale now, or are we still sort of in the experiment phase?
No, we've for over a year we've had Gen AI use cases in production on the Azure OpenAI models. So I think we were probably quite early in adoption.
Yeah.
Again, we started with the ones which were I think the first one we did live was transcribing and then using the Gen AI for us to understand why our customers were interacting with us. So it was like we were the consumers of it, so it was like a very low risk, and it's our ability to then say, if you have, we have 20 markets around the world and customers calling us with issues, our metric is reduce the number of times they call, reduce the issues at source. And so being able to use Gen AI to summarize and categorize. So literally now we have like a database where every single call is categorized and summarized, and there's a team doing root cause analysis of go and fix it, the root cause, with the target of customers never call with that issue again. And of course you're getting great data and you can run that, constantly and measure or that reason has gone down, the team looks at the next reason. So we've been doing that in production for more than a year, but now we've started to do it even in our customer-facing chatbots. So, but again, we've taken this risk-based approach. Most of our customer-facing chatbots still use the traditional cognitive services AI from Microsoft. But what we're doing is particular intents where we consider that intent to be a low risk. That then gets farmed to an OpenAI model to get a more natural response. So again, you have to do that in a sort of responsible way, learn by doing, but you don't want to swap from today it's running on cognitive services to traditional AI, and tomorrow it's running and you're in the newspaper because what your chatbot is committed, which you've seen from other companies.
Yeah.
But those things they're running at scale. I think we do 40 million chat interactions a month through our what we call our Toby customer chatbot. So it's in production at scale.
I think from that use case, it's really interesting to see that there's you can so easy to see the value. You're empowering your own employees to do a better job with giving them more information that's being pulled in from different sources and helping them understand the problem, and then you're also helping your customers to have a better experience as well. So it's just, there's so many points of value there, because even just empowering your own workforce, it makes them feel, if you can do a better job, generally most people, they want to do a better job. If they can do a better job because they're getting more information, better information, quality information, they can help their customers as well. So there's so much points of value there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it's, we're saying it everywhere, right? It always comes back to the data, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Every industry has this ability to create phenomenal amounts, of data. The car must produce massive amounts of data,
especially with the whole prediction is like by 2030, 95% of the cars sold will be connected cars. Connected means you're connected, and you can imagine what that means, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to touch on three things here. First, this is agnostic of any OEM, and you can go to Mozilla Foundations. There's a page on privacy, which is it says privacy not included. That's a Mozilla study of, and look up at some of the noted, players out there, privacy policies. Let's say If you don't share the data, your car might malfunction, may not purpose. So consumers don't really have a choice. That's one thing. Now, back to your point, I'm going back to the software defined. You could effectively, like, you could diagnose anything, right? There's a lot of information, and the industry has put in regulations. Like there are things like, WP20. There are some groupings like 155 and 166, which puts how do you protect people from cybercrime and software updates and all of that stuff. But the point is that how do you make sure that that data is more responsibly used to provide end user? Now, what we have done, I mean, as you say, the advanced driver assistance systems, ADAS systems, or we have our own proprietary stuff there, right? I mean, we're not new to that, so it's being used there. However, we try to use point control environments to test the effectiveness of like customer receptiveness, etc., of GenAI and other stuff. But overall, from a corporate point of view, I think we are kind of very nascent, because going back to my first point is we want to responsibly make use of this data to provide the right digital services and experiences across not just automotive, but insurance, effectively bringing mobility, energy needs, financial services together, but do so in a responsible way, keeping the customer at the heart of it. So GenAI will play a part because, if we understand the customer want their profile to be understood, they might want an opinion from the car to give me, I'm going there, what should I do? Personalized intelligent journey planning, for example. I would love to have the customers, because that is the future. Because if autonomous cars become a reality, and like even in London, I was pleasantly surprised today, like near Stratford, you could have smart mobility. They're using the Olympic cars park to actually test out real life, right, setup. So autonomous car, in the US, Waymo is already there, right? Yeah. When it rolls out, we want more from that. It's a third space. Right? What do you want to watch a movie? You want to explore something? So it is a real space. And I think that's where the data will be very valuable. But we have to do it responsibly, respecting people's opinions and expectations. Like someone's bar on privacy may be high, someone's may be low. But we must be able to evidence that. We must be able to explain why certain things are in particular way. That's my personal opinion.
No, I think look, as we wrap up from each of you, just you're very advanced in the journey. It just in terms of one piece of advice you'd give, somebody who's kind of starting this, in the organisation, what's the one bit of advice you would each give to, someone signing off? Yes.
I do think you need to have this cultural change, because you need to have this, like with all this based around the data, you need to have this culture of experimentation. Because you only learn by doing things with real data, and you have to have this culture of, being responsible with your use of that data and AI. So it's not just like it used to be just cybersecurity and privacy, but now there's a whole ethical aspect of is it like, even if it's secure and private, is it something which your customers would be happy with you doing? Like you want to do things which are for the good of society, to improve people's health, to improve the environment. Like so you need to have that, but it requires its whole cultural change, I think.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I think every organization should assess its own appetite, like what is its brand identity? What does it want to do? And at the end of the day, technology is just a means, right? What we use for it should reflect what its core values are, and the way it wants to use technology helps achieve those core values, which could be commercial objectives as well. Nothing wrong with that. But I think it's being really conscious about what are the guardrails? Yeah, from my point of view, the key thing will be to make sure that people are thinking about what is their brand identity. So every organization has its own value set. And technology is just a means to achieve. So remind ourselves, what are we here for? What do we want to do? What is our vision? And how do we use GenAI or any technology to achieve that, right? So some of that could be commercial objectives as well. Nothing wrong with that, but being conscious about and doing so with that understanding.
Oh, yeah. Vijay?
I think we have to embrace it. I think we don't have a choice, and I think I like your point about the culture. I think you're right there. The culture, we have to change the culture a little bit in the respect that there's still some fear around GenAI. I think people are still a bit feared of GenAI and what it can do to their jobs. But we saw this with other technologies in the past where it's actually created many more opportunities. So I think culture, we have to embrace it and embrace it responsibly as well. I think that's the key thing that, from a cultural perspective that we need to look at.
Yeah, look, the three of you. I mean, thanks. It's a fantastic conversation. We could go on and go on. For me, I think the most exciting thing is, we're now talking about ethics. We're talking about responsibility. We're talking about, we're not talking about IT conversations. We're talking about some really, really important things. And I think that's I think that we're starting in the right place by doing that, rather than just kind of talking tech, talking how we're going to deploy. Yeah, I'm very optimistic that we're going to get this trust built because of that focus that everybody has in kind of thinking about these things that are seriously important. So, look, all of you, thank you very much. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.